Hello everybody and welcome back to Chris Bosch Props. Today is the day. Guys, we have finally made it. We are going to mold my replica Proton pack shell. I have to be honest with you guys, there have been many days where it was dark, where it was dim, where I sat out here completely flabbergasted, didn't understand why things were happening. I wanted to just say, hey, I'm done with this thing. I just can't do it. But at those very moments, things just started to fall into place, and there were many of those moments, but we're here. It's kind of surreal to me. I can't believe we made it. You might be asking, if you're new to the channel, why are you molding it? Why are you spending so much money going about molding this? You can 3D print it. You can just wear it as is. Those are good questions. Those are good things to think. It is a lot of money. I would say that is the biggest obstacle when it comes to molding. It is quite the investment. The reason I'm molding this is, if you haven't watched my previous videos, I sought out to make the most accurate replica ever. I really wanted to capture the essence of the original Proton pack shells. I feel like I've done it. I'll let you guys be the judge. But with that being said, I have to mold it. The original movie in Ghostbusters, the production team casted their buck or their master in silicone, and they made castings in fiberglass resin, and they backed it with fiberglass mat. So that's the route I'm trying to take. I'm going to do a silicone mold and do fiberglass castings with a resin gel coat and get it as accurate as possible. So that's the reason why I did it. 3D printing is amazing. I love 3D printing. I love the accessibility these days that people have, where they can just make their own Proton pack at home. They ain't got to spend a whole lot of money. It's awesome. But a lot of those models that are out there are not screen accurate. They look great, but they're not screen accurate. They're off in a lot of places. Proportions aren't right. I'm not saying my shell is the best thing since sliced bread, but I really tried to capture the proportions and everything measurement for measurement. So we are here. We're going to get this thing molded. I'm going to show you guys how I do it. I do it very simple, stupid. There are various ways, all kinds of routes you could take to make very elaborate silicone molds. Not me. I keep it simple. I've done this before. Simple, stupid, and it's worked out. A lot of the failure points of silicone molds are not from using a lot of silicone to try to compensate. A lot of the failure in silicone comes from details ripping out and becoming soft and deteriorating from the various resins that you use. So I'm not worried about putting this much silicone on it. I just want to make sure that I put enough silicone to capture the detail, try to keep as many air bubbles out of it, and hopefully get an amazing mold. So come along on the journey with me. Let's do this. I'll show you how I do it step for step. Let's do it. Alright, so the first step, guys, that I did yesterday, I'm going to show you the video of that. I did that last night, and that was just building the clay wall around it. I kind of explain it in that part. So one of the first steps we're going to want to do when molding our Proton pack shell is we're going to want to build kind of like a divider wall around the Proton pack shell. And that's just because we're going to put a lot of silicone on this baby. And because we're putting a lot of silicone, we don't want too much runoff going. So this wall is going to kind of be like a barrier to keep the silicone in. The silicone I'm using is a brushed silicone, so we're going to try to keep as much of the runoff on the pack as possible, but that will keep it in there so I can bring the brush in and pick it back up. But I am going to want a little bit of a flange of silicone around the shell so I can put some small keys in so that it will stick to my fiberglass jacket. So one of the easy ways that I do it, there are multiple ways that you can do it. You can build a cheap wood frame. I've done that in the past, but I had some leftover Sculptex soft clay. Now this is the medium because they were sold out of soft. This will be for my divider wall later for the fiberglass jacket. But nonetheless, you can also use this as your barrier for your silicone. I had some leftover soft clay from a previous project I did on my RoboCop. So, you know what, I just thought, hey, I'd use it. And it's really simple. You just get a little bit of clay. You can be real intricate. You can be as intricate as you want. I'm pretty simple. So I just get a little ball of clay. I roll it up like so. Make sure you kind of get the proper spacing around the pack to allow for a little bit of runoff, because you do want that flange later on for your fiberglass jacket. So I just make like a little snake like so, connect it to what I've already done, and build it up, I don't know, maybe an inch, 3/4 of an inch high. I want to keep as much of the silicone on the pack, but unfortunately it's going to run off no matter how hard I try. That's okay, and that's why we built this wall. So there we go. And I kind of press towards the end to make sure it sticks to my board here. You can tell this board's been through some battles. But hey, there's no need for a new one yet. And you could sculpt this out. You can make, like I said, make it look as intricate as you like it. I keep it dumb simple. There you go. And we just keep doing the same thing. We'll rinse and repeat. This, you know, will take you maybe 15 minutes to do. No big deal. Next step will be hot gluing the pack shell down to the board so that while we're siliconing, it's not moving around. We want to make sure it sticks. So yeah, guys, that's one of the first steps. And let's move on to the next step was making sure this pack sticks to the surface. Now, on my previous molds, I didn't glue anything. I sat it down and I put silicone over it. I wasn't worried about hot gluing it. This round, I didn't video it, so I apologize, but I hot glued a few spots, just very, very small dabs of hot glue, and it's on there pretty good. You can make the choice whether you want to glue this down or not. My shell is heavy enough where it probably didn't need to be glued down. When you put that first coat of silicone, that pretty much glues it to the surface with the excess. So you make that choice. Right now, we're going to put some mold release on. This is Man's Ease Release 200. There are various other ways that you can use mold release. You can use Vaseline. I like this stuff. It works great. Why do we use mold release? We use mold release because when this silicone goes over the master, it's going to stick really, really hard. If I don't put mold release, it's going to rip up paint. It's going to rip up pieces of the pack. And that's why I use it. And even using this, we might still have that issue, but this is going to prevent a lot of damage, and it's going to help us to be able to pull the silicone off without too much of it. So I'm going to put a light coat all around the shell, and you just do this like you're spray painting it. I kind of like it too because it adds like a nice little sheen to the master. I kind of want to make sure I get it in the cracks real good. Alright guys, so we put a couple coats of ease release on here. I was overly generous just because I really don't want to destroy my master, but if I do, no worries. Hopefully we'll have a good mold and we can pull another master from that. The silicone I'm going to be using today is Rebound 25 by Smooth On. It's a platinum cure silicone. I've used it in the past. Extremely easy to work with. It is a 1:1 ratio, so in actuality, instead of 1 gallon, you're getting 2 gallons, which is a bang for your buck. This kit cost me around $300, $276, $300 with tax. It is quite expensive, but it will have a lot of longevity and it should last quite a long time. So that's the silicone I'm using. We're going to get it mixed up and we're going to start our first detail coat. Okay guys, so we got the lids off. It recommends that we mix it, so I'm just using some old mixing sticks from Home Depot or Lowe's, one of the two. And I'm just gonna get in there and I'm gonna mix everything up. I have two, so I'm gonna use this one for this one. Mix everything up, get all the catalysts or whatever, well blended, well mixed, and we're gonna start our first gel coat. Alright guys, so we have 1:1 ratio. We have it measured out. I wasn't too intricate on the measuring, just close enough. I have a little mixing stick. This is Old Faithful right here. You can use anything, screwdriver, anything just long enough to get it mixed properly. So I'm going to take this B part, going to mix it into A. Try to get the edges. Get this all mixed together pretty good. Now the thing that's great about Rebound 25 that I failed to mention is it is a silicone that can be brushed. But I've said before in my other molding videos that you can pretty much brush any silicone. But this one specifically caters to being brushed. The viscosity is just right. But yeah, you want to get this mixed really good. Buy these cheap brushes that you can get from Harbor Freight. I always like to pull the bristles because these bristles always want to come loose. So make sure you pull all your bristles out, your loose ones. You can already see a bunch of them are falling off. Alright. So we got our silicone here. Now we're going to try to pour this on kind of all over. You don't have to be crazy heavy on your first coat. You're really just trying to capture all the details all around. Actually, okay. So we got a pot life of 20 minutes, guys. So you ain't got to work crazy fast, but you still want to work. Alright guys, so I'm going to start brushing in the details. I want to try to get in all the crevices real good. Like I said, it ain't got to be crazy thick. Just enough to get the detail. This stuff will kind of self-level and settle on its own. So just make sure you get in there, get the details. Alright guys, so like I said, you don't want to go too crazy on it. You just want to make sure you got all the initial details covered. So as you can see around it, and then you can get some of those air bubbles out. I'm going to blow a little bit of compressed air all over just to get some of the air bubbles out. That's what you kind of want to avoid. So yeah guys, there we go. That's where we're at right now. First coat. Alright guys, so we're going to do our second coat here. I'm not adding any thickening agent at this point. I'm still just using the base material. And that's just because I don't want to create too much air bubbles at this point. So I'm going to do a few coats of just base material. No thickening, no pigments yet. Third detail coat. I'm going to add in some pigment, and that's just to help me get good coverage. I did 2 base coats just in its original color. I'm going to add a little bit of Silk Pig. This is just a black pigment, and this will make sure I get everything covered right. Alright guys, as you can see, I'm still getting it mixed together. But it just changes the silicone a different color for you. They have various colors you can use. I kind of mix it as I'm pouring it too, because some of that material likes to be stubborn. So this is the third coat. Alright guys, as you can see, that's kind of what the black pigment does in the silicone. It just helps me cover my bases, see where I'm at. It starts building up, looking like a real pretty cake. So we're 3 coats deep right now. The next coat, I think I'm going to do one more just base coat. Not any thickening agent yet, because I just really don't want air bubbles on the first few coats. And then I think after that coat, which would be our 5th coat at that point, I'll probably start using the thickening agent and do maybe 1 or 2 more coats. Alright guys, so now we are 4 coats deep. I made some keys here. These keys I'm going to attach to this flange right here. I'll probably put one here, one there. I'll show you guys when I do it. And that's just to help when you're casting, to keep the edges of the silicone mold from buckling in. It'll keep it attached to the fiberglass jacket and keep the structure and the shape of the original master when we're casting. So yeah, that's that. I'm going to do the next coats are going to be thickened coats with a thickening agent, because I want to build these walls up. If you're doing this, you really want to build these walls up. You probably want them at least a 1/4 inch thick. So I'm going to build all these walls up around with thickened silicone. Okay guys, we're on our 5th coat now. On this particular coat, I am going to add some thickening agent. This is Thybex by Smooth On. This will just thicken the silicone a little for me to give me the viscosity to work with to build up these walls so I don't get as much run. It will settle really good on top of the faces of the shell, but on the walls it likes to run, and the walls are still probably pretty thin. So we're going to thicken this so we can build the walls up in particular. I'm going to put maybe like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So yeah, that was probably like 10, 12 drops. You ain't got to go crazy on it. But you want to mix it really good. And that's it. And we'll get started. So we got the 6th and final coat done. You could see where I threw those registration keys. And that's just to help keep the structure and the shape of the casting. Keep the silicone intact so it don't flop everywhere as we're casting. So that's it guys. We got it pretty thick on the walls there. That's kind of what we want. We don't want thin walls. That just reduces the chance of it tearing in those areas. It's not crazy thick. It's just right. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to build a clay wall and do actually cut the trim of the flash around, remove the clay wall, build this clay wall, and then we'll lay our fiberglass jacket over it. So yeah guys, that's it. Pretty simple. 6 coats, lots of silicone, trying to get the best coverage over the areas. And that's that. Let's move on. The silicone is pretty much dry enough. I'm going to use a razor blade and I'm going to cut around the silicone, and we're going to make a really nice shape and make it look nice and pretty. Pull this all up here. Oops. Not sure if I didn't cut that one deep enough. There we go. There we go. Then we'll remove the clay wall. Whatever didn't come off. Trash. Trash. And then there we go. We'll clean up a little bit around it, and then I'm going to build my next clay wall for my fiberglass jacket. That's the next step. Let's move on. Alright guys, we're building our clay wall for our fiberglass jacket. Nothing to it. I'm using the Sculptex modeling clay medium. It's not as soft as I would like, but it's also not terribly hard. You could heat it up in the microwave and it gets it pretty soft. So yeah, keep in mind when you're doing your divider wall here for your fiberglass jacket that you put it kind of approximately like this. This just gives you the right amount of workspace, because if I were to put the wall down here, it would be very hard for me to do the jacket on this side. So I'm putting it here so it makes it easier for me to build the fiberglass jacket without too many dark crevices or corners that I can't get to. So I'm just trying to make my job easier by putting the wall in the right place. It's not perfectly centered. You can see it kind of snakes around, but it's no big deal. It's just for me to be able to protect the integrity of the mold and to keep its shape as I'm casting. That's all I need this for. And when I demold, it would be very hard to just drop one piece out of, because this pack acts like a key, so it wouldn't be easy to just drop the whole thing out of the fiberglass jacket. So that's why you do two pieces. So you remove the two pieces of the jacket and you ain't got to worry about wrestling trying to get this whole casting that you did inside the mold out of that jacket. It just makes it easier. You just take the two halves apart, there you go, and you demold your casting. That's why we do a jacket. You might be able to get away with just a one piece, but it would be a pain in the booty if you're casting with fiberglass resin to get the whole thing out of it, because this mold will key in. It basically has keys in it. It'll key into that fiberglass. It would be very difficult to get it out. If you were doing the rubber or the foam materials, you can use just a one-piece fiberglass jacket, because that mold would just drop right out because it's a softer material. If you have a hard material in, it's not going to drop out. I know I keep repeating myself, but just keep that in mind. That's why you have to do a two-piece jacket. Okay guys, we're going to start the fiberglass jacket. The material I'm using is 3M Bondo fiberglass resin. You can get this at Lowe's or Home Depot. It runs about $50 a gallon. I'm just using a Harbor Freight respirator, some disposable gloves, cups. I Vaselined the divider wall here just so when the fiberglass jacket dries, it'll be easier to pull off and separate from the other piece. I also have a fan blowing on me here to help just blow some of the fumes, because the fumes can get pretty intense. So yeah, I'm not going to go into crazy detail on how to fiberglass. There's plenty of videos on that. You could actually watch a previous video of mine of how to mold RoboCop gloves, and I went into more detail on how I fiberglass. So yeah, that's the next step. We're going to do one side. After that side is cured, I'm going to pull this clay wall off, add some more Vaseline all around, spray some mold release. That was one thing I also did. I sprayed mold release and I Vaselined the wall and around the mold. We'll rinse and repeat on both sides. Once both sides are cured, we'll break free the two halves and we will demold our piece. So yeah, let me show you what it looks like fiberglassed. Alright guys, so we built the first side. You can see I started to take this clay wall off. Because I Vaselined, it comes off pretty easily once you get it going. And that's it. The clay is still pretty good, so I'll probably just throw that in a bag and use it for another project. But yeah guys, so you can kind of see how that looks there. Now I'm going to start the next side. I'm going to Vaseline all inside this wall here, and that's to keep the next side from sticking. And then when the next side like this dries, I'll come in and pry all this out with a screwdriver. It'll be quite a wrestling match, but it will be done. Just make sure at this point you're using Vaseline and mold release. I spray the silicone with mold release. I Vaseline the wall really good and around here, and it helps tremendously. So yeah, keep that in mind when you're doing it. So that's how the finished product would look. Sorry, I had this propped up with my glove box because I was trying to get some sunlight to help it dry. So that's pretty much how the finished product will look. Now comes the hard part of trying to pry this thing apart. You got to take it step by step by step, slowly kind of pry, and eventually when you break the suction, it'll just pop right off. But yeah, I'm going to drill some holes first to screw this in once it's all detached. And yep, that's what I'm gonna do next. We got the fiberglass halves free. Wow, that actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was. That probably took me around maybe 10 minutes to do. I was expecting a much bigger wrestling match, but it actually wasn't too bad. So the only thing left to do is, you can see, I drilled the holes out. I drilled about 7 holes all the way around. I need to get some screws in them, and then I'm going to come back with a Dremel tool and cut all this and make it look nice and pretty. But yeah, that ain't too bad, I have to say. Came out really good. It should do its job and support the silicone mold without any issue. So I'm looking forward to it. The next part is demolding, and that's the part I'm most nervous about because I really want to preserve my master as much as possible. So I'm really going to take my time. My wife's going to be helping me on that. She's at work right now, so as soon as she gets home, we're going to demold this thing. Alright guys, the mold is done. It was a complete success. I couldn't be more happy. We're going to move on and we're going to start doing some castings. So the good news is the master completely survived. It is absolutely perfect still. And I couldn't be more happy with that. So thank you guys, that's it. And we should be able to pull castings. Alright guys, so I wasn't going to leave you hanging. We have our finished mold that I showed you, and I also did a casting because I really want to see how a casting is going to come out and see if all the hard work wasn't in vain. So I'm going to kind of give you an example or show you why we do the fiberglass jacket. So I've already explained numerous times the main reason for the fiberglass jacket, or the mother mold as they call it, is to keep the structure of the silicone so it's not flappy and we don't get a warped cast. So everything looks structurally sound as far as I can tell. So we're going to demold and really see if that holds true. So what I do first is, when I'm done with my casting and it's dry enough, I'll flip it over like so. I already took one screw out, but I start taking my screws out here. Okay guys, so I had about 7 screws all the way through the wall. All I do, take it off like so. You get to set it to the side. There you go. Now it's time for demolding. When I demold, I kind of loosen my sides a little bit, break the vacuum, and then I'll start kind of rolling it onto itself like so. See? There you go. Looks amazing. Now we'll do the same thing on the other side. I'm just kind of breaking the suction around. I usually wear gloves, but I'm out of gloves, so I have one glove on, one glove off. We make the most of it. All right. My wife's kind of assisting me here. And there we go. Voila! That is the first casting out of the P. Chris Bosch 1 mold legendary shell. And I have to say, it looks pretty legendary. So there we go guys, there's a finished casting right out of the mold. She looks amazing, no complaints, exactly what I expected. I couldn't be more pleased. So we went from building this thing from plastic to having a finished master to now having a finished casting. It's amazing, the process. Nothing to this. I can't wait to finish this thing. Thank you guys for watching. I apologize that this wasn't more of a how-to. My wife usually helps me towards the end of the process with demolding and whatnot, and she had to work one of the days, so I wasn't able to be as detailed as I would have liked, but I think it'll give you guys a general idea of how to do this, and you can fill in the blanks. So thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it, as always. On to the next one. Thank you guys.
Song